Hey everybody, Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast. Today on our show we have Bruce Denson. He is a giant in Pinellas County in the criminal defense field. He is a throwback to attorneys from the days of yore. He's a true gentleman and a scholar, and I don't just say that lightly. And he's been nice enough to come by today and talk to us about the book that he wrote, some exciting things that he's doing on social media, his practice over in Pinellas County, his experiences so far, and kind of what the future holds for him. Hey, Bruce, how are you?
I'm great.
Thank you so much for coming over. You decided to come over during rush hour from Pinellas to Tampa.
Yeah, I made it easy on myself.
It's a high honor for me. I feel blessed.
Glad to be here.
Did you have court today?
I had South County with our new judge, Judge Berlin, who was doing a nice job up there. A little slow, but he'll learn the ropes. He did a great job today. And then I had North County this afternoon.
North County's still at a separate courthouse, isn't it?
Still a separate courthouse up on US 19. So Judge Bettinghouse likes it up there, and it seems to work pretty good. So.
She's set up shop up. She's kind of becoming the Overton of North County.
She is. She has become the Overton of North County, but she runs it nice and runs it smoothly. So I don't mind going up there.
Now, what's the name of the South County judge again?
Berlin, Judge Berlin.
I've never heard of this person.
Yeah, brand new judge, just got out of judicial school, and I understand he did well over there, got high marks from folks.
What did he do before that?
He was in the JAG, he was a JAG prosecutor, and then he was at a civil law firm for a number of years.
So no criminal background, no
criminal
traffic background.
They throw him in the highest volume division. He's going to learn fast.
Well, that's interesting. Well, here in Tampa, what I find is the new judges always get family law, and
Yeah.
And God, you're swimming with the wolves at that point. It's trial by fire.
Right. It's a high volume division. But I could tell he's a sharp guy. He'll learn quick. And
Well,
keep it moving, so.
I liked Reba. Where did they move Reba to?
Unified Family Court.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he'd had enough traffic, I understand.
So he's still in 49th Street. He's just doing the dependency and the family law and all that
That's what
stuff.
I understand. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. Where are you from originally?
All right. So I'm from Ocala.
Oh, really? So you are a Florida boy.
Yeah. I was born and raised in Ocala, and my dad was born in Ocala. So long roots in Central Florida, and then. I'd like my origin story to be like Andrew's, but I don't have that much death metal in my background.
Oh yeah. You're rock and roll. You got it in you. We'll get there. We'll talk about paddleboarding and all the other cool stuff.
All right, yeah, because I could, I did start a band in high school, and it progressed from there.
Yeah.
But so grew up in Central Florida, Ocala, then up to University of Florida, and then down to Stetson for law school, and married a local girl, and never left. So.
Were you an only child, or did you have siblings?
No, I've got siblings. I've got a brother and sister. My dad's a lawyer, and
Oh, he is.
Yeah, and both my siblings are attorneys.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Interesting. So what type of law did he practice?
Well, back at that time, everevery general practitioner.
They call it threshold. If they cross the threshold, you do it.
Yeah. He did a lot of criminal defense though, and then he got into real estate, and in Ocala, you couldn't make a mistake in real estate.
So he stayed in Marion County.
He stayed in Marion County.
Have you had the opportunity to go up to Marion County in your practice?
Yeah. I was just there this week. In fact, it's pretty fun to go because
fun's an interesting word for Marion County.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Well, it's pretty cool because on the third floor there, they have a picture of the Marion County Bar in 1966.
Yeah.
And it's
3 guys.
Yeah.
And your dad's one of them.
20 guys, and my dad's one of them. And and a lot of the judges I went to high school with, so that's nice.
I had a DUI in Marion County 5-6 years ago, my first case up there, and the judge was a former prosecutor, and this guy, I remember he was doing this thing where if you walked away from the podium without asking for permission, he would light you up in court, and that was do you know who I'm talking about?
No, but that doesn't surprise me.
Well, and so the funny thing about it was, and I hadn't recalled this, but I'm going to be all over the place. So my wife and I got married in 2005, and our honeymoon, we decided to go to St. Lucia, which I don't know if you remember Allison Ridenauer. She had gone to St. Lucia for her honeymoon, so we were trying to figure out where to go. We went there, and it ended up being like the storm of the century in St. Lucia. So we spent our entire time in the room, and I was a prosecutor at that point. Turn on the TV, and there's Joe Hobson. I'm in a different world, and Joe Hobson's on the TV. It's the Eileen Wuornos case.
Yeah.
It was a documentary about, the
So
movie
funny.
Monster, Eileen Wuornos, and the prosecutor in that case is the judge that I'm talking about in Marion County.
Okay, all right.
And because I guess she killed one of the guys or dumped one of the guys up that way, so
Right.
one of the cases was there. And
Yeah.
anyway, but Marion County, I have a couple up there now, but
Yeah,
not fun for me.
It's different when you appear that first court date and they give you a trial date. And
Oh, they set your first 5 dates without any discretion.
Yeah.
And I feel like you get home teamed a lot, but maybe, I don't know, do they recognize the Denson name up there?
Well, a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah. That does come with a little advantage. In fact, when I was a prosecutor in Pinellas, they assigned me and it was Mike Andrews, the prosecutor at the time, now Judge Andrews. He and I went up to Ocala as special prosecutors to prosecute a DUI case.
Oh, really?
So that was kind of fun.
God, a trial with Mike Andrews as a prosecutor had to be amazing.
Yeah, he's a good attorney.
Mike Andrews and Peter Ramsberger and then Hank Andringa. Yes. When they are on your side, it's the best day ever. When they are not on your side, yeah, you got to bury your head in the sand. Yeah. But anyway, so what are your brothers? What type of law do they practice?
My brother does. He's at a big firm, Nelson Mullins, and has a big real estate practice.
Is he in Ocala?
He's in Atlanta. My siblings are both in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And then my sister does not practice. She picked a good husband.
She won. She somehow got out the other side of the gauntlet.
Yeah.
So did you go right out of law school into a state attorney's office, or did you?
I did. I did the clinic program at Stetson.
Mm-hmm.
I jumped on like any trial that moved. I ended up trying 8 cases while a clinic student. We won all 8 of those, and then they hired me, and then I lost the first 4 once they started paying.
What years was this that you were at the state?
94 to 98.
So was that Russell?
No, right after Russell. So Bernie
was coming in.
Chief, yeah.
He was spry and running every morning and picture of fitness. Yeah.
I always say I talked to Bernie twice while I was a prosecutor.
When you started and when you left.
Once when I left,
yeah.
And the other, there was a fire alarm going off. And my office and Judge Coleman's office were between Bernie's office and the door. So we're sitting in there shining our shoes. And we're saying, well, we'll just wait till the official fire alarm walks by.
Right.
And Bernie comes walking by and looks in at us, shining our shoes, and just says, "Get the fuck out of here." Those were my 2 conversations with Bernie while I was working.
That's pretty much every interaction that I've had with. I think he told me that, but he just meant in general, like, this is not the place for you.
Yeah. So I kept my head down while I was there.
Now, when you left, did you rise above just a division attorney? Were you a LTA and felony, or did you do any of that kind of stuff?
No, just division attorney and felony is where I peaked out at.
And then did you leave there and go right out on your own, or did you work for somebody else?
No, I went to work for Kent Whittemore.
I know the name, but
a long-time attorney. His brother's a federal judge over here, and
okay.
So a lot of Whittemore attorneys around. But went to work for him and practiced with him about 8 years, and then started.
Oh, so you did 8 years with somebody else?
Yeah, something around there. Maybe not quite that long, but something like that.
Was it purely criminal defense, or did you?
No, it was a lot of some civil litigation. I started doing cigarette litigation.
Like ordinance stuff, or?
No.
Like tobacco.
Yeah, tobacco.
Oh, okay.
Cigarette companies.
Oh, wow.
So I started that over there. A guy named Howard Acosta was looking for help on tobacco cases, and Kent said, "Go help Howard." And then I was up to my ears in it.
Did you get any trial work on any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were the first attorneys to collect verdicts against Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds.
Isn't that how like Yared and all these other guys like made their mint?
Yeah, but they on behalf of the state.
Sure.
Yeah, we were the first on individual plaintiffs in the country to collect against against both of those tobacco companies.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then when you went out on your own.
So the idea was, we had just finished a tobacco trial. I was done with tobacco. I'm like, I want to just go do crime. I'm done with this.
Right.
And in order to do that, I was going to have to just leave the Whittemore Denson law firm, it was called at the time. So I started my own practice. just to do crime. And then that was about the time the Engle decision came out, the big tobacco decision.
Right.
And back when Howard and I were doing it, we were the only guys in the state suing the tobacco companies.
Right.
There was like one other Jacksonville firm. So when we'd have a trial, R.J. Reynolds would rent out a whole floor of the Vinoy, bring down the A-team from Atlanta. Half the rooms would be offices, half they'd sleep in. They had 3 teams of paralegals working 8-hour, shifts, and it was crazy.
God, it reminds me of like what's the one with Paul Newman where he's the verdict or whatever. It's,
Yeah.
He's like sleeping off last night's drunk in his office and he's going up against the establishment. What, did you feel outmatched?
It was David versus Goliath the whole way. We'd never seen blackberry. This is how old it was. There was no blackberries back then. These guys had the first blackberries.
This was 96, 95?
Yeah. So, you'd come back, an issue would come up in court and you'd see them over there with their thumbs and you're like, what is that? And then they'd come back with a 20-page brief on it after lunch and you're just like, oh, geez Louise, this will never stop.
Yeah.
So once Engle came out, then Morgan and Morgan and Levin Papantonio and some of these bigger firms were getting in, and I'm like, these guys don't get in unless there's money in it.
Yeah.
And,
did you do okay off of it?
So we're doing one more round. It's been fine. It's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. So.
It was wasn't it Morgan, Colling, and Gilbert back then?
It was.
Colling and Gilbert.
Yeah,
So,
they do their own med-mal thing, now I understand. But,
different path. Yeah. So then you left and said, I'm just doing crime.
Just doing crime.
And that was 97, 98?
Yeah, something around there.
And how did you find it starting at that time? I went out on my own in 2005.
Yeah.
So it was the gold rush for about 2 years before the market took a.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that I think about it, so I think I left Kent's office in about 2005. I think the same. So yeah, it's 2 years were great, and then then about 2008, I was like,
what am I doing?
I got some time on my hands, and some soul searching to do.
Especially in crime, because you got the public defender and you got regional counsel and you got what's conflict counsel, and it's like they have a free option. How do you compete with free?
Yeah, you think crime is recession proof, but it's not.
They said family was recession, and it got to the point where people were so broke, it's like we can't afford to move out.
Yeah,
we're just gonna have to hate each other for 5 or 6 more years until it rebounds.
Yeah, but I will say, it really, things slowed down, so it gave me a chance to look at my practice and say, what do I enjoy doing in the practice of law? And it was criminal defense and helping people with addiction issues. And so I said, how can I do more of that? Let's do more of that. So and it just so happened about that time I was getting into paddleboarding. And I said, well, let's go to these halfway houses and these rehab places and take these guys out paddleboarding.
That's so awesome.
And see what happens. And I matched up with some great people to do that. And the first time I did it, I knew I was on to something. You know how you kind of have those little lightning moments.
For sure, yeah.
And it was cool. It was good. I'm like, all right, I need to do more of this. This is.
That's a whole topic that I actually want to spend some time on with you. So paddleboarding. How is it that you got introduced to that? Being a guy from landlocked Ocala.
Yeah. I was always into water sports.
Really?
Grew up water skiing and all that stuff. When I saw paddleboarding, I knew it was the sport for me. I don't know how, but I could tell by looking at it that it'd be cool.
Well, it's in my kind of estimation, it kind of occupies a unique territory that's kind of a crossroads of sport, art, mental, exercise, like yoga or Tai Chi or some of these other things that, it's arduous, but not in a traditional way.
Yeah, you can get a workout, you can relax with it. It involves balance, which
the core strength, which is amazing.
Core strength, and it when you're doing it, it occupies enough of your brain to just drive everything else out.
When you're doing it, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And so I love it.
So where is it right now as far as helping the people out that are getting a?
Yeah, so So I took, after that first outing, I knew I was onto something. I thought, well, let's start a nonprofit. So I formed a nonprofit called Addict, and started taking some more groups out. And I said, well, now I got to fund this thing now that I got that. So I started putting on some paddle races.
Because I've seen that on social media,
Yeah.
that you've done that stuff.
Yeah. So I started putting on some paddleboard races to fund. The intention was to fund a nonprofit, and it has done that. And we have just a great paddle community here locally. We have such great water, that the paddle community is awesome. So they've supported the organization through just entry fees in the races, and there we developed. I'm going to kind of get into the whole story here now, but we developed this whole program, of creating balance in your life, putting your oar in the water to move yourself forward when you're moving forward. It's easier to have balance. You got to do it under your own power. You got to put your eye on the horizon. You got to have some goals, and the reality that people fall off, and you don't have an option. You got to get back
on or sink.
So paddleboarding is like that.
It's an amazing analogy.
Practical application of what these guys are talking about in group every day.
Right.
So it was awesome. So it was just great. And then, after doing it a couple years, I don't know why it took me a couple years, but I realized, these are lessons not just for people with addiction issues.
Everyone,
everybody's got these balance issues, and needs to get outside more, needs to exercise more, needs to engage with their community more. So I said, well, and it was about the time that the Florida bar was finally kind of coming around to the idea of
mental health being important,
being an issue. So I wrote a CLE, and it just incorporated those exact same issues.
Right.
I just kind of pulled out, some legal stuff to go along with it, and the Pinellas Association of Women Lawyers were kind of like the first group to get on board with it, and we've done an outing with them like every year.
How many outings do you do a year? How many events do you do in a year?
It varies, and I've really kind of cut it back to just a few events a year, and one big race.
Do you have anybody helping you, or are you doing this all yourself?
I do it all myself. Well, when I put on a race, I have a buddy of mine that helps, and my family.
Yeah.
We always joke, my daughters write the numbers on people's legs. My wife is the queen of registration, checking everybody in. My son moves the buoys around the course. It's a good.
But what a great experience for your kids too.
That's cool. Yeah.
I've always had this idea, and I haven't been sure how to implement it, but I've always wanted to make charitable acts easier, because everybody says they want to do it, but no one knows how to get started.
Yeah.
And I've always had this idea of almost like an Uber or a whatever, where you can go on, you can put in your address, and it tells you, here are all the things within a 5-mile radius, 10-mile radius. This one requires your time. This one's money. This is for animals. This is for whatever. And I think that if it was easier to get into, that people might do more of it. But thinking about that too is for my kid, they're still a little bit young yet. I brought them to Salvation Army on Thanksgiving and stuff, but they're still a little bit young to kind of understand what it is. But I just think that's so important from such an early age.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool that you've kind of done this thing as a family thing. And
it's been a great family thing to just kind of show them the importance of giving back, and showing like this, like I said, this paddle community. It's just a bunch of cool people. We hang out with lawyers too much.
Sure.
So to get outside of that and to have that interest has been great.
I think I've asked you this before, but did you know Pat Klemish and his dad?
Yeah. Sure.
So I grew up. It's so funny because I grew up. We weren't friends, but we always kind of had mutual friends.
Right.
And he was this mousy guy, didn't say 2 words, but I remember he always had a guitar.
Yeah.
And he was always off practicing his guitar,
Right.
and just very quiet and shy. And then, God, about 5 or 6 years ago, it was one of the first Gasparilla music festivals. I was there with friends from high school, and they're like, yeah, Pat's band is playing. And I was like, who's Pat? And they're like, Pat Klemish. And out comes Thor on this, built like a brick shit house.
Yeah.
And he's a doctor. He speaks Portuguese.
Yeah.
He plays like these bizarre, exotic instruments.
That he builds himself.
He's a world champion paddleboarder. And I was just like, I immediately had like a midlife crisis. Like, what am I doing with my life? That
Yeah,
this
yeah,
guy is
yeah,
just like
yeah,
occupying like the top
yeah,
tier of all these
yeah. If you
areas.
really want to feel good about yourself, you can go watch him do 1,000 pull-ups this
Oh,
weekend.
I'm
That's what's
certain,
on his
yeah.
agenda.
I
But
mean, his brother Chris was at the state
he
attorney's
was,
office, and
yeah,
it's funny because you would, and then no insult to Chris, but
right.
you would never guess the two of them were brothers.
Patrick's his own unique individual.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and he's a great guy. And that, one of the cool things about being in this paddle community, the hip abduction played the parties all the
Oh
time.
my God, I love that band.
Before they had albums, we were having them come down and play our race, and it was just awesome.
I have a pretty, I would say, unique taste in music, but as far as background music, and I don't know if that comes off the way it's intended, but with my kids, I can put on hip abduction radio
Yeah.
and listen to it straight through. There's not a bad song. It
Right.
puts
All
me in a
sounds
good mood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that band so
Yeah.
much. I've seen them live about 5 or 6 times, and then I became friends with John Holt, who
Mhm.
replaced Pat when Pat left the
Right,
band,
right.
and now Pat and John are playing in Danfield together,
Yeah.
and they, they're it's just awesome because I think Pat even told or taught John how to play I forget what it's called. I want to say Missoni, but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, very interesting. And the dad who's got to be pushing 60 at this point is doing all these.
Oh, he's pushing 70, and he and Pat will go over to Hawaii to these, inner island.
And they're going like
races.
island to island.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Have you ever done like deep water paddleboarding?
I've paddled across the bay as deep as I.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
But, no, I haven't done that crazy stuff.
I remember it was at Oktoberfest here in Tampa, and we were sitting there, and it was Jeff Brown. Jeff Brown
Yeah.
comes up, and he's always doing these
Yeah,
crazy
yeah.
things too. Does he still do that stuff? Is he,
I haven't seen him, and he was never really a racer kind
Sure,
of guy.
yeah.
He's Pat.
He's kind of his
he was
own
doing his
person.
own thing.
Yeah. Anyway, well, the paddleboarding thing is so cool, but then there's another thing that you've been doing lately that I want to talk about. And you wrote a book,
Yeah.
and you've been doing these things on the TikTok,
Yeah,
and they've
right.
kind of populated
Yeah,
your
yeah.
other venues. But tell me about your book a little bit.
So, well, the book sprung from the CLE that I was doing with lawyers. So I recognized that I had this this body of knowledge and this approach to really what was becoming professional, a focus on professionalism. And I said, well, why don't I write a book, based upon these, kind of 5 tenets that we just talked about. And I wrote it, and I wrote it, and I wrote it, and it was written like a lawyer writes things. So I got a friend of mine who's a good writer to help me rewrite it, and so it was great. But I reckon it was about a third of a book,
Right.
and then I had this bad habit of taking pictures of
You and Brian Camerino.
people
Yeah.
at the courthouse.
Yeah.
So, people just, you're just
You see some amazing
you
things.
see 'em, you're no longer shocked by it, or even it's just you're like, all right, you got an important day here at court, and this is what you chose to wear.
Yeah.
So I just started asking people if I could take their picture, and they're proud of it. And
They think it's
so
funny, yeah.
They think it's funny, and so I took these pictures, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not really a book either. But that's about a third of a book. And so then I said, all right, well, why don't I research the science behind what you should wear to impress people and to give yourself a professional edge? And I'm not a fashion expert, but I'm like, I can look at the science to see what science says that we should wear to the courthouse. So I wrote a third of a book on that and put it all together.
Did you change how you conduct yourself at all as you were reserching? Did you?
Well, it definitely puts pressure on me.
Yeah. You can't show up like me to court. You gotta.
Everybody's got to be themselves.
Sure,
I think.
yeah.
And for me, a good conservative look, it suits me.
Well, I said it, and I hope it landed the way it was intended. But when I say you're a throwback, I mean, you are. I was trying to think. For some reason, you and Dick Watts were the only 2 names that I could come out.
Well, I appreciate being in that company.
Well, you're just gentlemen
But,
in an age that doesn't really exist too much in this country, and even in the current social, political, there's been kind of a veering away from being a gentleman,
Yeah.
and
But I really think that professionalism and manners, for me, they're stress management. We got a lot of stress in our jobs, and whatever I can do to kind of uh, mitigate that stress, I embrace and simplifying, the idea. All right, I'm going to court. I'm wearing a white shirt and a blue suit.
yeah.
And I'm being polite. I'm being courteous, and I'm preparing. And um, so to me, the professionalism, the manners is really stress management.
Well, it's true. Do you know who Jocko Willink is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've heard him on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I bought his book. But he's got a couple books that have come out since then. But he had this one. It was "Discipline is Freedom." When
Right.
you kind of can achieve a routine of habit, it frees you up to
Yeah.
focus on other
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
so,
Right.
like you're saying, the white shirt. I remember because I was. Did you do trial team at Stetson?
No.
I was trial team at
Yeah.
Stetson, and they always said you want a white shirt and a dark suit to frame your face because
Yeah.
you want the jury, you want whoever you're talking to be looking at your face
Right.
and
Right.
not your pocket square or whatever the thing
Yeah.
may be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, how was that received? I mean, did
Well,
notice a difference in how you were treated by the state or by your clients or?
I think it makes a difference. It certainly makes me feel positive about myself, and I think that translates. And um, I don't know. You tell me. You see the reputation in the community. I don't know. It's hard for
Well,
me to
no, I
gauge
love
that.
it. I love it, and it's funny too because it's very opposite of how I conduct myself, and I kind of have an ebb and flow between being proud of it and being uh,
Well, one, you're authentic,
well,
and I think authenticity takes you a long way,
yeah.
I think it's crucial, um, you know.
Well, one of my thing I always tell my wife is like, I'm not spending any money on something I have to wear to work. Like, I'll buy 15 pairs of Air Jordans or whatever else like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well,
But
anything I buy for work, I buy on sale.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But as far as with your business, one of the we a little bit before the show
Yeah,
started, we were talking about Gary Vaynerchuk and social media, and Gary Vaynerchuk. For those of you who don't know, I don't know what you call him. You call him a motivational speaker or a consulting person, and he's half the time I think he's full of shit, and I
yeah.
can't figure out
I
if he
agree.
even knows what he's saying. But sometimes he seems spot on, and one of the things that one of the kicks he's been on lately is that for marketing your business, two of the best avenues is TikTok and LinkedIn. And I got on LinkedIn years ago when it came out, and then just set it and forget it. I've started to more now try and implement it, but TikTok, you are the only person that I've seen do it remotely well. And you told me on your drive to work, your drive to school, you have your daughter video you and
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about that a little
yeah.
bit.
So I've got a 13-year-old who has a TikTok account. Is how I found out about it, um, and then so I like to be a creative person. So writing the book or making music or whatever, and so I'm like, well, what can I do with TikTok? I wanted to do more video, and I said let's just shoot some video in the car driving. That seems like a natural kind of approachable place. I hate lawyer videos where it's a guy sitting at the desk with the diploma in the background,
Yeah.
talking, and it just puts me to sleep. So why not do something that at most it's a minute. It's short. It's to the point. It's natural. It's just easy communication and something fun to do with my kid.
Have you gotten any response from it?
13-year-old girls love it. Yeah.
My dad got a DUI. What's your phone number?
Yeah, all my kids' friends, they love it. It makes them laugh. Beyond that, I don't know. I've only been doing it a month. So
Well, but I think that like how I got into this podcast, and I think maybe you've seen some of the videos that we've done on social media. It occurred to me at a certain point that we have as I think it's uniform to all businesses, but my experience as a lawyer is we have a imperfect formula for how we market ourselves. And what we do is we look at what other lawyers are doing.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is there's just everybody doing the same thing.
Right.
So how do you set yourself apart? And so I started to have kind of this thought, well, what do restaurants do? Is there a way that I could market like a restaurant? What do bars do? Can I market like a bar? What do radio stations do? And it's a journey, and I haven't had any great catharsis, but setting yourself apart or having a breadth of, between the book, you're showing yourself as an authority in the field.
Yeah.
TikTok, you're appealing to someone outside of the lane that you might normally be in. All these things together, I think, in the aggregate, kind of help get your message across.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if you're comfortable doing it and it's coming across like you want to come across, why not do it?
Yeah, and your website was amazing too. I remember you had all these great infographics on. Do you still have that?
Yeah. I try to put those out there.
That's awesome.
Just to help people. Yeah, because people get arrested. There's so much information out there, and so much scare information, or I don't know. I try to dispel all that. Make people see there's a way to handle it that's appropriate and get you through it.
Yeah. It's funny because I started out as a Pinellas attorney. I was a prosecutor there, and I practiced over in Pinellas. And then around 2008, I moved over to Tampa. And now coming to Pinellas, I feel like I'm treated like a Tampa attorney a little bit. Have you noticed kind of any evolution over there from what it was when you were a prosecutor to present? I mean, you've pretty much been under Bernie during the entirety of his career.
Yeah.
They just finally got emails.
Yeah, no, there really has been no evolution. I do like the joke that shopping or going to the Pinellas County Courthouse is like going to Publix. Going to the Hillsborough County Courthouse is like going to the Turkish Bazaar. You never know what you're going to get, and if you don't like it, just come back a month later.
Yeah, it's just chaos. Yeah.
And where Pinellas, it's very consistent, time after time. They don't have email. The communication is horrible, there hasn't been any evolution.
Now, you talked about Flip Coleman and you talked about Mike Andrews. Have you ever thought about getting on the bench?
I've thought about it, but I don't think it suits my.
I think you'd be amazing.
Yeah,
it might be a pay cut, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't. I guess my thought is I don't have to do. I wouldn't want to do felony work because I just wouldn't want to make those sentences.
Stakes are high, yeah.
And I wouldn't want to do county work just because of the repetitive nature.
There's monotony, yeah.
I do think it'd be nice to kind of do some county court work and work with young attorneys and kind of help train them up through the process. That's appealing to me, but I don't know. I like what I do.
Yeah.
I like helping the individual person. On a one-on-one basis. That's my.
Have you set any marks as far as retirement, or or any ideas?
I haven't. Though I'm 53 now, so I need to start thinking about it. But my health has been good. I'm
sure the paddleboarding helps a lot.
Paddleboarding helps, but
Got to get the kids out of the house through college, and then, well, like Jim Beach, I know he just kind of closed down, and this building that I'm in, I didn't buy it from him. There was an owner in between, but it was Pete Macaluso, who I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
And so some of these guys I see, and they're doing it, in their mid to late 70s, and that scares me. And no denigration to them at all. I mean, it's great, but I don't know that I could. I want to have something else in my life that's after. I want there to be another chapter from this one.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't want to be working then, but the nice thing about our job is if we want to, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm enjoying what I'm doing this year.
Well, you do a great job of it. I know you're well respected in the community by the state, your clients, the judges, and that's not easy, especially in the county that you practice in. So, the county that you primarily practice in. But anyway, thank you so much for coming by. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
If people want to find you, do you want to give them your website or your?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much at Bruce Denson on about everything.
Okay.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
Yeah.
Easy to find. All the DensonFirm.com is the website. If you one thing about professionalism, if I could, that we've got a great professionalism seminar coming up February 28th.
Sure.
Down at Stetson College of Law. And I kind of think these professionalism seminars, it's kind of like taking a shower, you know, they feel good and you need to do it on a regular basis. So I'd encourage everybody to come out to that. If you've been practicing less than 5 years, it's free.
Okay.
It's $100 for everybody else, but we've got Scott Neal, who's one of the 12 Strong, the horseback soldiers that went into Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, that movie. I didn't see the
Yeah,
movie, but I know
yeah.
about the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's the featured speaker.
Oh wow.
And they've got a bourbon company, so we've got a bourbon
Oh wow.
tasting afterward.
Is it like a multi-day event?
No, it's just Friday afternoon, February 28th, down at Stetson.
CLE hours?
4 CLE hours in professionalism, which
Okay.
are hard to get.
Yeah.
And this is going to be.
I always joke with friends about people who buy the CLE hours for professionalism
Yeah.
and then leave the office while
Yeah.
it's playing. It's like
Yeah,
it's like lying in church. You're just
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
It doesn't work.
No, this is the good way to get those hours. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes, come out and do it.
Very cool. Well, again, thank you so much. And if you're listening, Bruce has been a great example in my career, and he's just a great guy and a great attorney. So if you're looking for somebody, he's a great choice. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks.